You want to get better at video editing, but you're not sure how. You've been editing for over 6 months and watching YouTube tutorials, but you're not seeing the improvement that you'd like. So you buy a cheap course, sign up for Skillshare, and it teaches you the technical side of editing. But when you finish an edit, you look back at it and you know it can be better. You're just not sure how. So you follow the typical advice to just keep practicing, and now you're stuck in what I call the perpetual practice loop. Constantly practicing but not seeing any improvement. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. There's one thing missing, and it will break you out of the perpetual practice loop, and you'll get better at video editing 7 times faster. It's not a course, and you won't find it on YouTube, but Unsplice students have been using it to achieve my 7-year editing skill level from 8 years ago in only 1 year. My name is Shiny. I'm a video editing mentor and Emmy-nominated documentary and commercial editor that spent the last 15 years working for clients like Vice, BBC, Ogilvy, and more. And you're about to learn frameworks that help you understand what storytelling in editing actually is, and how you can use it to consistently craft commercials and documentaries that will hook your audience from start to finish so that you can charge £300 to £500 per day as an editor. Now, if you'd like feedback on your editing or your portfolio from an Emmy nominee, click the link in the description. I give feedback to 4 submissions every month for free. If you don't submit, it'll never happen, so do it now. You sat down? Class is in session. Now, everyone says the same thing, that you just need to keep practicing, right? Edit more, put in your 10,000 hours, watch some more tutorials, do more projects. And you've automated that belief. You just accept it as truth because it makes sense, right? Practice makes perfect, so they say. That's what we've been told our entire lives. So you're editing every weekend, in the evenings, after work. It's a grind. You're showing up, you're putting in the work, you're not being lazy, but you're still just not seeing the improvements that you'd like. Look, I understand why everyone would say it, because practice does matter. You do need reps, right? You can't get good at editing without actually editing. But it's the easiest advice to give. Just keep going. You know, it sounds supportive. It sounds motivational. It doesn't require anyone to actually help you. They just say practice more and walk away feeling like they gave you the best advice that there is out there. But it makes no difference. All it gives them is a sense of pride, and you're left wondering, there must be more to it. But here's the problem with that belief. You're editing in a vacuum. You finish a project, when you watch it back, you think, yeah, that's about as good as I can get it. So then you move on to the next one, and then you hit the same process, same uncertainty, same results, same, it'll do. And then 6 months later, you're still producing the same level of work that feels like off. Like you can feel it. You know it's not client ready, or at least not ready for the kind of clients that you like to be working with, but you can't articulate what's wrong. Maybe you try a new transition, mess with the color grade, you're just kind of guessing, changing things that you know because, well, you don't know what you don't know. It's not like you're being lazy, you're putting in the hours. And that's kind of what makes it even more frustrating, because you're doing what everyone has told you to do, but it's not working. What's happening is you're practicing your mistakes. You're reinforcing bad habits. You're getting really, really good at editing in a way that doesn't attract professional work. The reason that this is happening is because you can't see your mistakes. You're too close to your work. You know what you intended. You know what story you were trying to tell. So when you watch your edit back, what you're seeing is what you meant, but you're not seeing it so objectively on the screen. If you imagine somebody learning guitar alone in their bedroom, no teacher, no guidance, they're just practicing every day for a year. They're getting faster, they get more comfortable, but they've locked in this weird way of holding the pick and they've developed tension in their shoulders. They've taught themselves these finger positions that make it harder to move from one chord to another. Well, it's the same with editing. If practicing alone worked, then you'd already be great. Now, the one thing that will break you out of the perpetual practice loop is feedback. But the quality of the feedback determines the quality of your editing. If you ask your mum for editing feedback, she'll probably tell you, "It looks lovely, dear." And around the loop you go. If you want to play the guitar like Brian May, best person to learn from is Brian May. You need real feedback, specific, actionable feedback from someone who's done this professionally, someone who can watch your edit and tell you exactly what's making it look junior, the precise storytelling choices that aren't working, those specific moments where you're losing the audience, how to improve flow, pacing, music. So how do we know that this is true? Well, there's a misconception that your skill level increases linearly across time. But the reality is your skills will naturally compound over time. It's a curved line. And here's why. When you're working with low budget clients in the early years of your career, the feedback that you're receiving from these clients is trash. It's things like, "This music sucks. I don't like this shot. Can we do something with this?" Like, all of this feedback is non-constructive, destructive almost. And you're sat there scratching your head going, what do they mean? What do I actually do with this feedback? Like, how can I actually make it better? But as you start working with high-paying clients, they're a lot more credible. They've had years of experience assessing how their feedback affects an edit. They're more qualified to give constructive feedback, feedback that you can actually use to improve your edit. Things like, "The timing here is a little off. Can we bring this forward so that the reveal happens just before the drop in the music?" Now, when you receive that feedback, that is a skill. That's a lesson that you have now learned, and one that you can now use every time that you come across that problem in the future. So your skills are increasing a lot faster, which means your rate increases faster, which is why your skills compound around this point in your career. And here's the magic. You see, this moment in the graph where you transition from low-paying clients to high-paying clients, when your skill really accelerates and compounds, this is about the 7-year mark. I, like most editors before me, had to work it out on my own, just practicing, taking low-paid clients, keeping working, hustling, finding ways to scrape together a living, gradually getting better. Nobody could tell me how to get better, no matter how many people I asked. Everyone just said, practice. So it took me 7 years to get to the point where my skills and my network allowed me to make a decent living from editing. And that's normal, which is ridiculous. And that's why I work with unspliced students, to help them get to this 7-year mark, the equivalent of £300 per day, as quickly as possible, typically in less than 1 year. And this sweet spot here is where you'll find those high paying clients who are typically more qualified and give actual constructive feedback and will pay you £300 to £500 per day in the UK, which is why you'll hear me talk about preparing you to work with clients willing to pay £300 to £500 per day. So, going solo, 7 years. With mentorship and feedback, 1 year. And yet, having your work properly critiqued can be uncomfortable sometimes, especially if you're new to it. But it's the only way to escape the perpetual practice loop. Plus, our job involves receiving feedback on every single edit. So you might as well make it useful feedback. Because when you're working with clients who are not idiots, you get better career satisfaction, you get faster skill increase and income growth, and you deal with less bullshit. So if you're stuck in the perpetual practice loop and you're looking for feedback so you can finally get better at editing, submit your edit or your portfolio on the link in the description. I pick 4 people at random every month and I give you feedback for free. It doesn't have to be your best work. In fact, it's better if it's something that you're struggling with or is unfinished. I'll give you frame by frame feedback on how you can make it your best piece of work yet and get it to the level of a £300 to £500 per day editor. Remember, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. And if you're practicing without feedback, you're just getting really, really good at being stuck. So break out of the perpetual practice loop, get feedback, and submit on the link in the description.